Introducing Paddy Power's Beat the Drop. We're giving every customer 30 days free entry and £1,000 up front. It's up to you to keep it. All you have to do is answer 10 questions correctly. Play now at beatthedrop.paddypower.com.
Hello and a very warm welcome to this week's Racing Post Football Postcast. I'm Dave Clark from the Racing Post, joined by colleagues Mark Langdon and Dan Childs here in the studio. Lots been going on, gentlemen. Before we get stuck into the action, I want to find out who you're feeling at the moment, who you like, who you're against. We're going to talk who's hot and who's not. We're working on the jingle for that one, and we'll be coming along. I'll go to you first, Mark. Who's hot for you right now? Who you liking the look of?
Nathan Jones. I think it's a really good appointment by Stoke, a little bit out of the box. I think in terms of how they usually think, I mean, they've gone, Mark Pulis, Mark Hughes, then they go Paul Lambert, then they go Gary Rowett. I think they've taken a slightly braver decision in appointing Nathan Jones because some of their fans are kind of lukewarm, I think it's fair to say, to the appointment. But I think that's because they haven't watched, well, I suppose why would they, but they haven't watched Luton. They haven't seen the football that's been played there for the last couple of years. Their goal difference in League Two last season was absolutely outstanding. They've got the best goal difference in League One. They play really nice attacking football. I think he's seen as an outstanding coach, and for a change, and it hasn't happened too often, I think Stoke have made a shrewd call in this appointment.
And anyone who's backed Luton?
I'm back Luton League One. I mean, I was gutted, and then you sort of look at like the potential incomings, and Appleton was mentioned. Don't mind Appleton, but Stephen Robinson of Motherwell is the favourite. He's a bit of a fan's favourite at Luton, and I heard that he wants out of the club. He'd happily leave Motherwell for a job like that, of course. But I don't know. I mean, I'm sort of Don't make me fancy him quite as much.
Dan, who you liking the look of at the moment? Who's hot for you?
I'd say Wolves at the moment had a really good Christmas, didn't they? Got the great result at Spurs, probably caught Spurs on a good day, but 3 points they wouldn't have thought they would have got. Then they had the benefit, didn't they, with the draw, the Liverpool selection and their injury problems in that FA Cup game. So another good performance, got through to the next round. And I think they're looking now. You're thinking about them earlier in the season. They had that dip, didn't they? And you were worried. Are they going to fall back towards the group, even having a bit of a relegation issue when they lost that game at Cardiff. But they now look like they're in that bunch of teams targeting the 7th spot and could have a good run in the FA Cup.
They're sort of where they were expected to be now. They were touted as the best team with those coming up.
They come through their sticky patch, didn't they? I mean, the Palace game was a disappointment for them, but I think Neves didn't start that game, which was it takes a lot away from their game. One of as we saw with his strike in the cup match, he's a key player for them and in their build-up as well. So, easily their best midfield player. So they missed him against Palace, but overall, they've responded to that little blip and they're going really well.
Right, Dan liking the Wanderers of Wolverhampton. Mark, who are you against at the moment? Who are you not liking?
I suppose it's got to be Rochdale. I think Keith Hill's done an amazing job at Rochdale over the years. An absolute club legend, cult hero. But if you have a look at their recent, results and performances, they're getting absolutely battered left, right, and centre. Not just losing matches; they're getting beat 4 and 5. And I was wanting to be against them last week against Burton, but I was worried that Burton playing in the League Cup against Man City, maybe that would be a distraction, and they've absolutely pummeled Rochdale. Again, they lost a couple of key players to sort of bigger clubs, and Keith Hill, usually you can rely on him to lift spirits around the club. He was very downbeat after that Burton game, and I think they've got a couple of really important games coming up, starting with Peterborough away on Saturday, and if they lose again, I just wonder if he maybe feels like he's taken this group as far as he can. Hard to see him ever being sacked, in terms because of what he's done for the club over the years. But he maybe walk away if things don't improve soon.
So at the moment, a side to oppose for you.
Yeah, I mean Peterborough are not the best team. I don't think to be sort of smashing into, because they're on a bit of a sticky spell themselves. But yeah, I think. Just looking at the League One relegation sort of market, there's a lot of teams right at the bottom there that are improving. Bristol Rovers, Scunthorpe, I expect Oxford to sort of kick on at some stage. Plymouth are picking up. There's a lot of teams down there that are really doing well, and you just wonder if Rochdale are getting really dragged into it, which I didn't see coming at the start of the season.
Interesting. What about yourself, Dan?
I'll go for the Premier League again. Bournemouth, I think, because they've had that great start, it's kind of insulated them a little bit from criticism. They've been having a terrible run for a long time. I think 10 defeats in 13 now in all competitions. Puts them really in the bracket of being probably the most out of form side in the Premier League. And despite that run, because of the start they had, they're still in a pretty safe position in the table, and I was just surprised by his selection for the FA Cup game to make so many changes. I know it's been a busy period, but you've got Brighton at home, you have got a chance to have a little bit of a run at a cup, and he just made wholesale changes, and not only in not being able to have a chance of going far in the cup, but it also just dents the confidence even more to lose another home game to a team around that you'd expect really to beat.
It's weird, isn't it? Because football's so much about timing. Like, you know, if there was a big job available sort of 3 months ago, Eddie Howe would have been really pushed for it. If Bournemouth carry on like this, they've probably got enough points to not go down.
Could they?
No, they wouldn't sack him, but let's say Tottenham are looking for a new manager in the summer. Yeah. If Bournemouth carry on this run, he's got much less chance of getting that. Whereas, if they started terribly and finished well,
his stock's going down.
Yeah, it's quite interesting the way that sort of a lot of it's about time. And as sort of fans, if Bournemouth finish the season in 6th or 7th and Eddie Howe moves to Tottenham, I think the fans think, oh, that's a good choice. If they pick him up with them sort of being 15th or 16th in the Premier League, he's already sort of got to prove himself a bit more. So, he's not doing himself any favours, I don't think.
All right, good stuff. Right, let's move on then, because there's been lots of domestic cup action. Well, let's start with the League Cup. We've had the first leg of the 2 semi-finals. I think it's fair to say that it's a little bit more competitive in one of the semi-finals than the other, Mark. Yeah,
well, the away goal rule's not in operation, Dave. So, I mean, if Man City score at Burton, it still only means Burton need 10 to take the game to penalties, where, of course, if the away goal rule was in operation, they would need 11, which might have been a little bit more difficult. Now, I mean, that tie was, it was over.
Just professional.
Yeah, City, I've seen some people have a go at City for, for keeping the foot down. I think it's more disrespectful if they don't carry on. And I'm pretty sure Nigel Clough would think like that as well. Warren, the Rotherham manager, said after the FA Cup game, my players, every day you learn. If one of them takes something from that game, then it's been a good experience. And I think it's the same for Burton. But you're right, the Tottenham-Chelsea game, really interesting.
Nicely poised now.
Nicely poised. Spurs round about the 4-9 sort of level to sort of 2's on to qualify for the final. Looks a little bit short. Like I said, the away goal rule not in operation, go straight to penalties, so there's no extra time. I think Chelsea probably fancy their chances of being able to pull that game back. They certainly deserve more than the defeat at Wembley, definitely.
Well, the outright prices from Paddy Power. City, of course, are a 2-on chance now. Tottenham 3s. Chelsea a top price with Paddy Power 11-2. And if you fancy Burton, perhaps gambling's not for you anyway, but 500 to 1. What are your thoughts, Dan?
500 to 1? You're missing about 8 zeros off that one, Dave.
Chelsea at 11-2 look probably the best value. I agree with Mark. I think the Spurs to qualify price, you'd think it'd be around that price if there was an away goal rule in place. The fact that there isn't, it's just only a single goal victory, and you've got a penalty shootout in your own stadium. You could argue Chelsea might be slight favourites in a shootout because they're in their own stadium. So Spurs, I think, are going to have to play better than they did in the first game. They defended really well against Chelsea, but let's face it, Chelsea played like the home side in that game. And I think if Spurs don't raise the game, you'd expect Chelsea to win the return match.
No, Son's caused.
Son as well.
He didn't cause Chelsea problems in the first leg, but he did in the Premier League victory. Yeah. He's out, but then maybe that by then a sort of Dyer or Vertonghen will be back.
They might need to change the shape even as well, and maybe go with the central three.
But it's definitely not all over. I think Chelsea.
So we're liking the Chelsea price to qualify for the final.
If you were out of the two, I'd rather back Chelsea than Tottenham.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, let's move on then to the FA Cup. As we've already mentioned, Wolves saw off Liverpool. That was probably the big story, the big guns that went out. I'll give you a quick show from Paddy Power. Man City 9-4 favourites, 9-2 Chelsea, 13-2 Tottenham, Manchester United 9s, that's top price. Arsenal 10s, and then a whole host of teams at 14-1. West Ham, Wolves, and Everton. What are your thoughts, Mark? What we've seen so far and what we're seeing in the next round?
Well, I mean, the team that Man City put out against Rotherham, it knocked my socks off. Well, I mean, I couldn't believe how strong that was. Pep Guardiola saying that some of his injured players actually need rhythm and need game time. And if they carry on like that for the rest of the tournament, I mean, they'll take some beating, particularly seeing as they're kind of closest team to them in terms of ability. Liverpool were already out.
It's a strange tactic from him because, I mean, if they were 10 points clear in the Premier League, you'd go, well, maybe he's going to rotate in the Premier League.
But he says they need rhythm. He says they need rhythm. I mean, I put up Watford as the outsider. I mean, I don't think that's a bad... I mean, they're away, which is a slightly unfortunate, but, I mean, Newcastle tend to play weakened teams, and the fourth round is before a Premier League batch of games, or, I mean, Blackburn will probably fancy their chances of beating Newcastle in that
50-50 tie
in that replay. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm still happy enough with the Watford one. Obviously, pick of the ties is Arsenal against Man United. I think Arsenal... You know, if we're talking about them being a bigger price than United to win the cup, I'm not sure about that at home. I mean, Arsenal, I know it was under Mourinho, but I mean, Arsenal, were favourites at Old Trafford not that long ago. I mean, how much, I suppose Mourinho maybe was the overriding factor there. The one for me is that I think the abuse that Liverpool have taken is absolutely ridiculous for picking a weakened team. Yeah, have a pop at Leicester, and Dan mentioned Bournemouth, but I mean, Liverpool, I think, you're 4 points clear. You haven't won the Premier League since the Championship since 1990. I think they're well within their rights to rest. And he did put on decent players towards the end to try and get the tie back. But, I mean, you have to... With their centre-back issues, they had to rest Van Dijk. If Van Dijk gets an injury that rules him out for 2 months, I mean, I think that is appalling management from Jurgen Klopp. So he did the right thing. They just had a hard game. As Dan mentioned, Wolves are really strong. If they were playing Tranmere or Rotherham, they probably would still be in the hat, and Klopp would be happy enough. So I think the abuse Liverpool have taken is just stupid.
What are your thoughts, Dan?
Didn't rest enough, couldn't you?
Yeah, because Lovren picks up an injury. Yeah, so I mean, the sort of the dinosaurs that go on about how important the FA Cup is. I mean, of course, there is some importance to it, but winning the league has got to be Liverpool's priority at the moment. I mean, it's ridiculous to suggest otherwise.
Yeah, I think the Arsenal price sort of stood out a little bit to me. I'd fancy him actually to get through that tie. I think there's still a little bit of a case of Man United have had this quite easy start under Solskjaer. I think we're going to learn a lot more. We'll talk about later when they play the Spurs at Wembley. I would make Arsenal favourites to win that tie. And if you're making them favourites for the tie, you've got to think there should be a short price outright. And I agree, City, maybe they won't be able to play such strong teams later on if it ties it and is a champion. The fact that the Burton tie was such a foregone conclusion, he could almost mix and match. He could say play half of his strong players against Rotherham and half against Burton, and maybe that meant the FA Cup side against Rotherham was stronger than it might be later in the competition. All
right, good stuff. Well, talking of Arsenal, let's move on to the Premier League action this weekend. The 12:30 on Saturday kick-off is West Ham at home to Arsenal. Prices with Paddy Power 12-5, West Ham 13-5, the draw, and evens. The Gunners, if you fancy them, Mark?
No, I think I'd rather be a layer than a backer. I'm going to go West Ham or draw, double chance in this one. I mean, Arsenal have got quite a few players back, and if you do fancy Arsenal, that would probably be, I suppose, one of the reasons why. But they have only won one of their last 6 Premier League away matches. They've only kept 1 clean sheet in their last 14 in the Premier League. That was against Huddersfield, who we all know have got the worst attack in the league. And I'm just looking at West Ham at home. They've drawn with Chelsea. They beat Manchester United. I thought they were a little bit unlucky when they lost to Tottenham 1-0. And the Man City game wasn't a 4-0 either. They had chances in that one and were just done by the supreme quality of City in that right final third where ultimately it matters. I don't like West Ham when the pressure's on them to win matches, but I think in this type of game, I think it maybe suits them more. With Burnley, they put in no sort of show at all.
No.
So I mean, I think there's a fair chance of West Ham getting something from this game. So a lay of Arsenal, West Ham will draw a double chance.
Okay, Dan, Mark, not looking the like of looking like of Arsenal even money. What about yourself? Yeah, that's right.
So one of these games where before I looked at the prices, I thought I'd like to be getting with West Ham here, but a team at home to a big six side, you're just being greedy. I'm looking for around 3-1 to because it is tough to beat any big six team. So I'm edging towards the draw in this one. I think there'll be one thing you do know, they're going to be goals. I looked at the over 2.5 goals is trading at around 4 to 9 for over 2.5 goals, and you can see why. Both have got a few issues at the back. West Ham conceding plenty of goals. Arsenal have had problems with injuries at the back as well, with Mustafi, Koscielny. I mean, you could argue as well, even when they're playing. I mean, are they that good defenders anyway? But
the blow is they're
playing.
Well,
yeah. But there's doubts over whether they're going to be available. Obviously, holding out long term. They're relying a lot on Socrates, I think, at the moment. To hold the defence together. And West Ham at home. Just in terms of backing a win, you look at the last 2 home games, and I agree with Mark, they sometimes raise the game against bigger teams, but it will worry you that they've lost to Watford 2-0 and then only drawn 2-2 against Brighton. So I just think tight game, go for the draw.
Okay, neither Dan or Mark liking the look of Arsenal. Right, we're going to head for a quick break and then we'll tackle the rest of the Premier League matches.
Introducing Paddy Power's Beat the Drop. We're giving every customer 30 days free entry and £1,000 up front. It's up to you to keep it. All you have to do is answer 10 questions correctly. Play now at beatthedrop.paddypower.com.
Welcome back to this week's Racing Post Football Postcast. I'm Dave Clark from the Racing Post, joined by colleagues Mark Langdon and Dan Childs. We're now going to tackle the 3 p.m. kickoffs on Saturday in the Premier League. First game up, Mark, Brighton at home to Liverpool. Prices with Paddy Power, 17-2 Brighton, 9-2 the draw, and 3-10 Liverpool.
Well, yeah, we mentioned it earlier on about Lovren picking up the injury at Molineux. So I'm going to go for Liverpool to win and both teams to score. No Lovren, Gomez and Matip. Suppose that probably means Fabinho at centre-half, unless Klopp plays the 16-year-old Hoover, who looked all right at Molineux, I suppose, but he's only 16. Brighton have scored in all of their home games this season. That includes Tottenham, Chelsea and Arsenal. I think Liverpool will win the game, but maybe Brighton can pick up something.
I'll take a chance here on Brighton nicking a result. I just think Liverpool, with the injuries that have been mentioned, are a little bit too short. So I'll go draw Brighton double chance at 5-2. I think those issues at the back, you've got Van Dijk obviously coming back in, but Brighton are good with set pieces. You've got Dunk and Duffy coming up for corners, free kicks. Murray's pretty good in the air as well. I just think that there's a better chance than the prices suggest of Brighton nicking a result.
Just quickly, Mark, obviously the January window's open. Do you think Klopp will dip in for defensive-wise?
I doubt it. I mean, I suppose it depends how long, how quickly you can get Gomez or Matip back. I'd be surprised. I mean, not easy to find somebody that's good enough to play for Liverpool, but only for a short term, because he's got his sort of centre-backs there. I think he'll probably just try and ride it out.
Talking about Tarkowski, aren't they, on loan? But I mean, Burnley are not going to let a top centre-back go on loan, are they, in January?
Be crazy.
Yeah.
It'll be an interesting one. Right, let's move on to Burnley at home to Fulham. Burnley 13-10, the draw 21-10, and Fulham 11-5, Mark.
I say he did do it before, didn't he, with Steve Corker? Do you remember? He got him in, but I mean, you need proper quality. I'm going to go for the draw in this game. Burnley, of course, really picked up in recent weeks. I still not entirely convinced by the games that they've won. Fulham, before the Arsenal, I'm writing off that Oldham Cup defeat. I mean, it wasn't the strongest Fulham team. Before they got beat at Arsenal, when I don't think they played as badly as the scoreline suggested, they only conceded 1 goal in 3 matches, and they drew 0-0 in a very similar type game against Newcastle. So, the draw.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that. I'm going to go for the draw as well. I know Burnley have had a couple of wins, but I think it's West Ham didn't really turn up, did they, when they went to the game at Turf Moor, and Huddersfield on such a bad run at the moment. So I'm not going to get carried away by that. Fulham are improving. I think that loss at Arsenal, that was probably a bit of a false scoreline, was their only defeat in 4 Premier League games. 2 poor sides, draw for me.
Okay, 2 votes for the draw. They're 21-10 with Paddy Power. That one. Let's move on to Cardiff at home to Huddersfield. Cardiff 11-10, the draw 21-10, and Huddersfield 5-2, Mark.
Not a great. I'm going to go for Cardiff, but I mean, I don't think I'll be having a bet in this game myself. Huddersfield, 8 defeats in a row. That does. I mean, it's terrible, but it does concern me, because these losing runs don't go. It's like winning runs; they don't go on forever. So at some stage, they're going to, just because football's just like that, it's low scoring sport. You'll pick up something somewhere. but they just don't score goals or enough goals, and Moyes is a big absentee for them. And Cardiff have beaten Wolves, Brighton, Southampton, Fulham at home, so I'd probably edge towards them.
Would this be the shortest price Cardiff go off in the Premier League this season for a game?
Oh,
it's got to be up there.
Off the top of my head, I would have thought so. I mean, I can't remember the Burnley game. Yeah, this will be the shortest price. I mean, they probably do just about deserve it, but I mean, I'm slightly nervous about Cardiff at 11-10 to win any Premier League game.
Dan, what about yourself?
I'm going to go for Huddersfield. I just think this is I look at the two sides, and I think there's neither team has got any quality really up front. I mean, there's a lot of similarities there. Having watched them both, quite a few times this season, I just think Huddersfield are a slightly better footballing side. So I know there's an 8-point gap between them. I just think this is almost an early cup final for Huddersfield. They're 8 points off Cardiff. They've got a tough run of fixtures coming up. If they don't win this game, they're gone really, I think. So I'm just going to take a chance that they perform and win it.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because I didn't realise that Huddersfield were so far adrift. It's only when you sort of like look, because all of the other teams have been picking up sort of the odd win here and there. Like all of a sudden they're like 8 points. You're like, wow, how did that happen? It's pretty tight a few around Christmas. But
certainly can't play for draw here, can they?
No, you can't. I mean, festive period does it does tend to do that at times at the top and bottom. You have a bad sort of spell or a good spell, and it can really define your season.
Well, if they don't win here, they're gone. The words of Dan Charles. Right, Palace, Watford next up. 6-5 Palace, 9-4 the draw, 12-5 Watford. I'll come to you, Dan, because I know you keep a keen eye on Watford.
Yeah. I think Watford are a reasonable price here, actually. I'll take a chance on them. I think Palace are better suited to playing away from home, and their results actually show that they're getting more points away from home than at home. They had that win at Wolves that I mentioned. At home, I just think they lack a goal threat. Again, I mean, the Grimsby game is just another case. I mean, the amount of, and it's been a constant theme where they're having plenty of pressure, plenty of shots a lot of the time, but there's just a lack of quality to finish things off. I think Watford have got a better balanced team, got more quality up front, and a good away side, as we saw when they won at West Ham recently. The draw at Everton, where they probably should have won. So I'll take a chance on Watford.
I'll go for Watford, but draw no bet. Palace have only conceded 2 goals in the last 5 Premier League games at Selhurst, and they were at 1-0 losses to Chelsea and Tottenham, so they don't get turned over easily. And we saw they won at Man City, but as Dan was saying, just maybe not the quality up front that's needed. They have a lot of shots, but a lot of them are low quality shots. And Watford have got that sort of thrust and quality in the sort of where it matters in that final third. And they won a probably similar game at West Ham where they rode their luck a bit, but it just shows that they have got a bit of punch up front.
Flying high, Watford at the moment. Right, Leicester at home to Southampton next up. 10-11 Leicester, 12-5 the draw, and the Saints are 3-1 Mark.
Yeah, I mean, Leicester are just a really difficult team to work out. I mean, you look at
more difficult than Everton.
Yeah, I think they're more difficult than Everton. I mean, because with Puel, you're not even sure what team he's going to pick. Right. Sometimes he really mixes and matches. Sometimes they put in a lot of effort. I mean, saw him at Tottenham when they were barely running, and yet then you can't beat Man City without really trying. So it's a very strange. And then they won at Chelsea as well, 1-0 again. So that they're a horrible team to predict. Southampton have got a few injuries up front. I was looking at Nathan Redmond to score in this game. He's got 4 in his last 5 matches. A couple of years ago, people really rated him highly. Lost his way. I think maybe Hasenhüttl is a coach that can sort of steer him back on the right path. Got a couple at Derby last week. And he's going to carry their forward threat with Ings out. There's a talk of Austin being suspended. It could be Shane Long up front. So I mean, if they're going to get a goal,
it's not going to come from Shane Long.
Coming from Shane Long. So yeah, Redmond anytime.
All right, good stuff.
Yeah, I think this will be a tight game. I think Leicester are similar to Palace in a way. I think they're better set up sometimes to play away from home than they are at home, and maybe that. I mean, the game against City, although they're at home, they're playing like the away side, hitting on the counter-attack, and maybe that's why they're doing all right against the bigger teams, struggling, when the onus is on them to create, and teams are sitting in a little bit more. So I think Southampton have improved under Hasenhüttl. They've had a tough run of fixtures, but I mean, got the 0-0 at Chelsea recently as well, which was a good result. The injuries are a worry. I think I would be interested in, if Ings was playing, even taking a chance on them to win, but I'll go for a tight game and the draw.
Okay, right. Before we head to another break, we'll squeeze in the 5:30 p.m. kickoff on Saturday, which is Chelsea at home to Newcastle. Chelsea 5 on, the draw 5-1, and Newcastle are 13-1. Mark, what do you like here?
Well, I wouldn't back Chelsea at 5 on. I mean, Dan mentioned that game against Southampton where they had a lot of the ball, they had a lot of shots, but they haven't got that person to play in the penalty box. We saw that against Tottenham at Wembley, where a lot of their play was really good. But if you haven't got somebody, if you put Harry Kane up front for them and see the difference, because Hazard's doing all this really good work and attracting 4 or 5 players, but he's doing that in areas where I think opposition teams are quite happy for him to have the ball a lot of the time.
What's wrong with Morata at the moment? Then?
Well, they said he had a slight injury against picked up in that Forest game when he scored twice, missed the open goal again, and then that becomes like the story. But
he's had a poor season though, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean he doesn't look that interested to me. I think he's
didn't even celebrate his goals.
No, he looks disinterested, and you can't have somebody like that playing. He clearly wants to go. Sarri doesn't overly like Giroud, so they've got a problem. They need a Higuain type in there. I still think they'll beat Newcastle, but I was looking at different ways to play it. One of them was Chelsea to win and under 3.5 goals. Another one would be to win to 0, or if you wanted to a bit more juice for your bet, maybe 2-0. I just see Chelsea just grinding it out. Newcastle have lost all their games against the big 6 this season, but they're usually competitive. But Chelsea have sorted it out at the back, I noticed recently. In their last 8 Premier League games, there's only been 15 goals, so they are pretty tight at the back since they got that thumping at Spurs, and they're not scoring many, so a low-scoring Chelsea win.
Okay, good. So different ways to get Chelsea on side.
Other
than 5 on, different ways to get Chelsea on side. What about yourself, Dan?
I've got very similar views, but I mean, just add that to maybe the Chelsea sorting out. Maybe Christensen's coming in. He's a less flamboyant than Luiz, but I think they look more solid with him. Luiz makes errors a lot of the time, so that may have helped him a little bit. Rudiger looks more focused as well now. Had a terrible game, didn't he, in the game, the league game against Spurs? But
they've really tightened up since then, haven't they? I think
they have, yeah.
He saw things in that game he didn't like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Understandable.
But I think the Newcastle point of view, they are a hard team to. Well, they've lost all these games against the Big Six. A lot of them have been really, really close. I mean, they've had 1 goal defeats away to Manchester City, away to Manchester United. Against Chelsea, home to Chelsea, home to Spurs, home to Arsenal. So, they often, even the Liverpool 4-0 away game recently, they were only blown away late on. It was quite a close scoreline until sort of 80 minutes. So I just think this could play out a similar way. Chelsea again clearly having a lot of the ball, maybe not making the most of that due to the lack of strike power there, and I'll go Chelsea to win by 1 goal at 13-5.
All right, good stuff. Right, do stay with us because we've got 2 games on Sunday and of course the Monday night game to get stuck into, and the boys' best bets of the weekend.
Introducing Paddy Power's Beat the Drop. We're giving every customer 30 days free entry and £1,000 up front. It's up to you to keep it. All you have to do is answer 10 questions correctly. Play now at beatthedrop.paddypower.com.
Welcome back to this week's Racing Post football postcast. We've still got 3 games to get stuck into, and the boys' best bets of this weekend, joined by Mark Landon and Dan Childs from the Racing Post. And Mark, first up, we've got Everton at home to Bournemouth on Sunday, 2:15 kickoff, 8-11 Everton, 13-5 the draw, and 7-2 Bournemouth.
Over 2.5 goals for me in this one. I mean, I want to be against Bournemouth. I mean, they're down to 12th in the Premier League, but playing worse than that. Lost 8 of 11 in the Prem, conceded 15 goals in their last 4 matches in all competitions. So there's the obvious negatives for them. Just think with Everton, something's putting me off them. I think that derby defeat to Liverpool just knocked the stuffing out of them. They're only 11th in the table, and I feel like there's a bit of pressure building on Silva, just because he's earned reputation for doing a good job at Hull and a good job at Watford, but ultimately, he didn't achieve what he wanted at either of those 2 clubs. And now, it's kind of happening again at Everton, where the players seem to like him, the football's looks okay at times, but the results are not backing it up. So slightly nervous about backing Everton, but Bournemouth just defensively all over the shop at the moment. So it's a tentative vote for over 2.5. I just think that maybe Everton with what they've got in the final third, Bournemouth 50. I saw Callum Wilson being linked with a £50 million move to Chelsea, which made my eyes sort of pop, I have to say. I'm not sure he's worth that, but I'm a big fan of his and King and Fraser. They've got goals in them. So yeah, over 2.5.
Dan, you were nodding, the pressure building at
Everton.
Everton.
I do think they're gonna break the pressure and win the game, but it is a big game for Silva. I mean, if they lost the game, I'm not sure he'd be that far away from even looking at sacking him, because you're looking at where they expect to be. A lot of money been spent, probably 7th. They're looking to even start attacking the some of the big 6 teams or the weaker one, maybe Man United. We were talking about that a couple of months ago. They might finish above United, and now if they can't even finish 7th and they're stuck among the likes of Brighton, Bournemouth as well with them. Yeah, it's a big. They're underperforming to quite a degree, so I just think it's a massive game for them, and I think they have got too much for Bournemouth offensively with. Likes Richarlison, Sigurdsson. There's Calvert-Lewin's done a little bit better as well when he's over the Christmas period, when he's had a few chances. It's a massive game. I just think it's an ideal time to play Bournemouth, as I mentioned before. The amount of goals they're conceding. I mean, they've actually got the worst defence among the top 15 teams. They've only conceded 7 goals less than Fulham, who we've been berating for being awful at the back all season. So I just think it's a perfect game for them to get back on track.
Straight in, 8 to 11?
Yeah, I'll be backing them.
All right, good stuff. Right, let's move on to the 4:30 kickoff then, and probably the match of the weekend in the Premier League. Mark, Tottenham at home to Manchester United. Evens you can have about Spurs. 5-2 the draw, 12-5 United.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a very interesting game. Pochettino being strongly linked with the Old Trafford job. You do wonder if there's a little bit of some maybe Spurs fans think, well, if we lose the game, that probably means that Solskjaer's more likely to get the the United job permanently, and for a little bit of short-term pain that we'll have. There can be long-term gain with Pochettino remaining at Tottenham. Football doesn't ultimately work like that. I think there are negatives against Spurs. Bit tired, just in general, small squad, and they had that really hard game on Tuesday against Chelsea, whereas United have been sunning themselves in Dubai. However, I still think Tottenham are better than Manchester United, and I mean, I think therefore evens at home. I think there may be there certainly was a little bit of odds against about earlier on in the week. I certainly think that's a bet if you can get odds against. I mean, there's 10 points difference. Tottenham have won 15 of their last 18 matches, 7 of their last 8 at home, and their last 3 at home to United. So United really need to show that they've improved quite a bit under Solskjaer, and I think Dan mentioned it earlier on the Postcast. They've only beaten Bournemouth, Cardiff, Reading, Newcastle and Huddersfield so far. So, I still want to see a little bit more before I buy into the Solskjaer and what he's doing at United. They are improving. Clearly, Mourinho was a big problem for them. We've seen Pogba turn up. Rashford's in the mood up front. So, I can see why people are starting to get behind him and this United team. But I mean, I think it's factored into the prices a little bit that that they've made this improvement. So I'll still go for Tottenham, but I think that midweek break is quite a big thing. But I'll still go for Spurs.
Dan, what about yourself? I mean, the Mourinho handbrake is off now,
yeah.
But is this the first big test for them?
Yeah, I still take the view they've obviously improved since Mourinho's left, but I think you're going to, by the end of the season, personally, I think you're going to realise that all the problems aren't just Jose Mourinho. I don't think the team, personnel-wise, is good enough at the moment to challenge for top 4, and I think this may be the game where that's revealed. Having said that, I'm watching Spurs against Chelsea. I do think it's probably a good time to play Spurs. Poch has been using a lot of the same players for a very, very busy run of fixtures. There's been a tired performance against Wolves. If the performance is similar here, then that's obviously going to give United a big chance. So I wouldn't be wanting I think the match prices I'd leave alone. And I'd go Kane at the moment. He's in great form for Spurs. A game that Spurs are evens, or if you think there should be a shade of odds on favourites, Kane to score the first goal at 7-2 to me doesn't seem that bad a bet. He's scored in his last 6 matches. 3 of his last 4, he's actually got the first goal. So 7-2 Kane first goal for me.
Do you think United have sorted out their defensive
No, I don't think so, and I think that's a big area where Spurs have actually got a big advantage over them. Spurs, as we saw against Chelsea, defended really, really well, despite not playing well. And I think United, this is their first big test against a good attacking side.
I thought even Reading had the odd chance against them in the FA Cup.
The odd chance.
Dominated.
Looked like they played them off the park, really, but just didn't have a cutting edge at the end of it. So, yeah, I don't think all is sorted out yet for United.
Okay, still work to do for United. Right, let's move on to Monday then. Wolves, having dumped Liverpool out the FA Cup, may just do them a favour now in the Premier League as they travel to Manchester City on Monday night, 8 p.m. kickoff. City 7-1 on, 13-2 the draw. And you can have full teams about Wolves, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the draw, thinking that it looked a little bit of a big price to me. I mean, there are some games where you say City at 6-7 on. I mean, even when they lose to Crystal Palace, okay, you fully understand why they're the price that they are. I don't fancy them at that price here. So there's a couple of ways. I mean, you could just lay City. They've scored 16 in their last 2 home games, but I mean, Rotherham and Burton, I mean, they're not in the same, well, they're clearly not in the same league as Wolves because they're in the Championship and League One. But we've seen them against the Big Six this season, do good things. They've won at Tottenham, they've drawn, they've taken points out of everybody other than Liverpool, and they knocked them out of the FA Cup. So I'm going to actually, my best bet though, is under 2.5 Manchester City goals at 10-11 with Paddy Power. I mean, City will have to work hard for this victory. They probably will win, but in 5 of their last 7 in the Premier League, they scored 2 goals or fewer. And I don't see Wolves chasing the game if they go sort of 1-0 or even 2-0 down. I mean, they're a streetwise, savvy team that's well organised.
How have they set up in similar fixtures to this against the big teams?
Well, we haven't seen them play away to Liverpool, which is probably the most similar lineup. They've changed the team slightly in recent, because it used to be 3-4-3. It's now this sort of 3-4-1-2. Just gives them one more player in midfield, and so it might be like Dendoncker or Size with Moutinho and Neves. So and it just gives them a little bit more defensive solidity in their team. Obviously, Man City away is the hardest game you can probably get in European, so that becomes world football. But I mean, there'll be other opportunities to back City at sort of this sort of price when you say, okay, they deserve it. I mean, it's a tricky one. They'll probably win, but
dangerous
it's a bit
opposition.
tricky.
Yeah, Dan, what are your thoughts?
I'm of a similar mind here. I'm going to go with a correct score. A Man City 2-0 at 5-1. I mean, playing into that, idea that Wolves. That's the reason. One of the reasons they don't concede. They do well against the Big Six is because they don't concede many goals. So they're always staying in the game. I mean, a stat there. I looked at their results this season. They've only conceded more than 2 goals once in 24 games this season. That was the Spurs game. They lost 3-2. Actually played all right in that game as well. So if you're not conceding many goals, you're going to stay in matches. I do think City at the moment, they are playing full of confidence after the Liverpool game, obviously, and the 2 big cup wins. But this is a lot tougher, as Mark said, and I'll just go with a correct score dart, 2-0, 5-1.
Okay, wicked. Right, that's the Premier League ticked off, all 10 games there. What about outside the Premier League, guys? Anything catch your eye this weekend?
I mean, outside of the NAP, I just got a couple that that are on the list at the moment. One would be Doncaster away at Wycombe. Donny playing really well at the moment. I put them up on this sort of show last week to beat Preston. Marquise up front is scoring a lot. Herbie Kane in midfield. Looks like a player as well they've got on loan from Liverpool. Wycombe were on a bad spell, and Scunthorpe signed a lot of players recently. Brought in 5 players in the last week or so. Look to be on the up. Walsall, on the other hand, are really struggling. So around about 13-5 Scunthorpe. I think they'll give you a run for your money at that kind of price.
What about yourself, Dan? Outside the NAP?
Other than the NAP, I'll give you 2 that I'm thinking of. Swansea had that great result against Aston Villa in the cup game. He rotates a lot, Graham Potter, so I just think they might be a little bit fresher after this Christmas and New Year period than some of the other teams, and they were coming out of it well with that 3-0 win at Villa in the FA Cup. They're away to Preston, who have had a lot of injuries, been using the same players, so there's a tiredness factor there, and we saw where he played his strongest possible team at home to Doncaster in the FA Cup. They still lost 3-1 and didn't play very well. So I just think that's a good time for Swansea to be the outsiders in that game. Is a bit big. The other one, I just think purely on the basis mainly that Burton have had this game. I know that you're going to expect to get stuffed anyway, but they have had to work hard during the game to try and keep the score down. It's a Wednesday, playing again on Saturday at home to Gillingham. Well, I don't rate Gillingham a great deal, but at the moment they did have the boost of beating Cardiff in the FA Cup, so they're on a bit of a high. Just think they're a little bit overpriced. So I think they're around.
Tom Eaves is back, isn't he? Missed a
Spell. I mean, you keep an eye on the transfer window, I mean, because there's a lot of clubs being linked with him, so you don't want to be back in Gillingham at 4-1 and then find Tom Eaves has been sold. So just keep an eye on that.
Andy Carroll.
Well, you said that, Mark, not me. Right, let's move on to the boys' naps then this weekend.
This will not be beaten.
Okay, Mark, we're going anywhere in the world this weekend. Where are we going?
County Ground Swindon for League Two leaders. Lincoln, draw no bet against Swindon. Lincoln are a team that don't do very well on stats, particularly on sort of the shot ones. They're a very direct, organised, disciplined team that doesn't particularly want the ball. They're happy to sort of play counter-attack. But what that does mean is that you sometimes get bigger prices about them. And they've only lost 4 matches in the league all season. There's 15 points between them and Swindon, and it's almost pick 'em, draw no bet. And I think that Lincoln, are quite a bit better than Swindon, who are improving. I think it's fair to say it's only 1 win in 6, and that was against Macclesfield.
Dan, what about yourself?
I'll go down to League One. I think Plymouth are second from bottom, but they're playing away to Southend, are in the middle of the table. But Plymouth's position second from bottom, it doesn't tell you the story of the last 12 games in the league. They've actually won 5, drawn 2 and lost 5. They had an awful start, similar to last season. Now that they recovered incredibly last season and made the playoffs, the recovery hasn't been to the same level this year, but there has been a recovery, and they've been a mid-table team for the last 12 games. Southend are kind of win one, lose one at the moment, but underlying it, there's a lot of injuries at the club. They also lost Taylor Moore to an injury in the Football League Trophy match on Tuesday, and they lost 2-0 home to Portsmouth, who I think made 11 changes. So Southend played a fairly senior side and still lost the game to a young Portsmouth side. So I don't think everything's great at the moment at Southend, and I think it's a good chance for Plymouth to go and win.
Nice one. Right, Dan's Plymouth at Southend 13-5. Mark, Lincoln at Swindon, draw no bet 8-11. That double pays just over 5-1 with Paddy Power. Looks a nice solid double for this weekend. That about wraps it up, guys. Thank you for your expertise. And remember, if you do enjoy these shows, which I'm sure you do, please do rate, subscribe and review on iTunes. Look out for our racing postcast Mondays and Fridays. We'll be back next week.
Introducing Paddy Power's Beat the Drop. We're giving every customer 30 days free entry and £1,000 up front. It's up to you to keep it. All you have to do is answer 10 questions correctly. Play now at beatthedrop.paddypower.com.